welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something that might sound pretty specific, the global tube expander market.
Right.
But stick with us because these tools, well, they're actually fundamental to a lot of industrial progress.
Absolutely.
And tracking their market gives us a surprisingly clear picture of, global economic development. So for this deep dive, we're working with insights from Cognitive Market Research. They put together a forecast covering 2021 right through to 2033.
A pretty comprehensive look then.
Exactly. And our mission today, well, to unpack the growth projections, see which regions are really driving things, and figure out what these numbers truly tell us about industrial trends worldwide. Because even in these, let's say, specialized components, you find incredible clues about the world economic pulse.
And it helps to know what tube expanders actually are, right?
Good point.
Yeah, fundamentally, they're critical tools for putting together and maintaining things like heat exchangers, boilers, some big industrial stuff, power plants, chemical processing, huge HVAC systems, shipbuilding even. It's foundational.
So when we talk about this market, we're really talking about the building blocks for energy and manufacturing.
Pretty much, yeah. The tools needed for the backbone of global industry.
Okay, let's start with that big picture then. Globally, this market was valued just shy of $590 million back in 2021.
589.844 million, yeah.
Right. But here's where it gets interesting, the projection. It grows to around $750 million by 2025.
Okay.
And then it really takes off forecast to hit over $1.2 billion by 2033.
Wow.
That's a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR of about 6.2%.
So it's not just, a minor increase. It's solid, sustained growth over more than a decade.
Right.
And for you listening, what this really signals is a consistent global investment in, building and upgrading industrial infrastructure.
Keeping the engines running, basically.
Exactly. It shows ongoing demand for the facilities that underpin our modern economies.
Okay, so sustained global demand. Let's break that down. Where is this growth actually happening? Let's start maybe with North America.
Sure.
So North America in 2021, the market there was about $161 million. And the projection takes it up to just over $325 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of around 6%. Pretty solid.
Still strong, yeah.
And within that, no surprise, the U.S. is the biggest chunk. It goes from roughly $128 million up to over $257 million by 2033.
Makes sense.
Canada shows steady growth, too. But Mexico is quite interesting here.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, it showed really rapid growth, expected to more than double, from almost $14 million in 2021 to nearly $31 million by 2033. And its CAGR is higher, almost 6.8%.
Huh. That is noteworthy. That faster pace in Mexico, it really does make you think, doesn't it?
About what's driving it.
Yeah. It strongly suggests, a real pickup in manufacturing activity. It could be things like nearshoring, companies wanting production closer to the U.S. market.
Right, building new factories, expanding existing ones.
Precisely. And all those facilities need the kind of equipment we're talking about, heat exchangers, boilers, and the tools to build them, like tube expanders.
Okay, that makes sense. So moving across the Atlantic, Europe. How does the picture look there?
Let's see.
Europe's market started at around $146 million in 2021, the forecast. About $290 million by 2033.
So roughly doubling over the period as well.
Yeah, similar overall trajectory.
Yeah.
And you see consistent growth in the big economies. The UK goes from about $24 million to $46 million.
Okay.
Germany, the industrial heartland, moves from nearly $30 million up to $58 million.
Right.
France, Italy also showing healthy, steady increases. But one detail that jumped out at me.
What's that?
The rest of Europe category showed particularly fast growth, projected to almost triple, actually, from about $15 million up to over $43 million.
That's interesting. So while the core economies are growing steadily, some other parts of Europe are seeing much faster expansion in this area. It could point to perhaps major modernization projects or maybe new industrial hubs developing in, say, Eastern or Southern Europe. Catch-up growth, perhaps?
Could be, suggests broader industrial activity than just the usual suspect.
Definitely something to watch there.
Okay, now. Let's talk about a real powerhouse region for this market, Asia Pacific.
Ah, yes, APAC. Always significant in industrial markets.
Absolutely. This region was already big in 2021, over $209 million.
Right.
And is projected to soar past $443 million by 2033. The CAGR here is strong, almost 6.5%.
So growing faster than North America or Europe on average.
Seems like it, yeah. And leading the charge, well, China.
Naturally.
Its market is set to grow from over $85 million to over $183 million.
Huge numbers.
And India's growth is also really robust, from around $35 million up to nearly $78 million.
Also more than doubling.
Definitely. And then you have Japan, South Korea, Australia, Southeast Asia, all showing dynamic upward trends too. It's broad-based growth across the region.
When you look at the scale and that growth rate, it just underlines Asia-Pacific's role as really the dominant engine in global manufacturing and infrastructure build-out right now.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with those figures.
A huge chunk of the global demand for these kinds of foundational components is originating there. Think new power stations, massive chemical plants.
It's where a lot of the heavy lifting is happening.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move south now. South America, what's the story there?
Right.
South America's market was smaller, about $25 million in 2021.
Okay.
It's projected to grow to almost $49 million by 2033. Brazil is the biggest player, expected to nearly double its market size. And countries like Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile, they're also showing moderate to fairly fast growth. And again, that rest of South America category is interesting, more than doubling from about $2.4 million to over $5.4 million.
So similar pattern, steady growth overall, with some pockets potentially growing faster, consistent expansion if on a smaller scale than APAC or North America.
It seems that way. Now let's talk about the Middle East. This region really stood out in the data.
Oh, how so?
Well, it surged from around $29 million in 2021, projected up to nearly $68 million by 2033. That's a TER of almost 7%.
7%? Wow, that's notably higher than the global average.
It really is. Saudi Arabia, for example, goes from about $4.8 million up to almost $12 million.
Yep.
The UAE, Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, the rest of the Middle East, they're all showing growth rates over 6.6% CAGR.
That's quite significant. It really marks the region as a key growth hotspot.
Definitely.
And you have to think, this ties into the big economic diversification pushes happening there, right?
You mean moving beyond just oil and gas?
Exactly. Investing heavily in new manufacturing capabilities, renewable energy projects, processing plants, all sorts of industrial infrastructure.
And that requires these fundamental tools.
Precisely. That high CAGR in tube expanders is likely a direct indicator of that ambitious industrial build-out taking place.
Fascinating connection. Okay, last region on our tour, Africa.
Right. What's the picture there?
Africa's market started at almost $19 million in 2021
Okay.
and is projected to reach nearly $39 million by 2033. The CCEGR is around 5.7%.
So steady growth, maybe a bit slower than the global average, but still consistent expansion?
Yeah, that's right. Nigeria, South Africa, and the rest of Africa category all show this consistent growth linked to ongoing development of industrial infrastructure across the continent.
And I think the key point there, even though the absolute market values are smaller right now compared to, say, Asia, is that consistent expansion. It positions Africa as a growing frontier for these kinds of industrial components. It signals a foundational buildup of industrial capacity.
A sign of future potential.
Definitely. It indicates that groundwork is being laid.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've journeyed across the globe, essentially.
We have.
And the clear picture is one of consistent, pretty strong growth for the global tube expander market. It's set to more than double in value between 2021 and 2033.
Driven by that fundamental industrial development we're seeing everywhere.
Right, across every major continent.
Yeah.
It really underscores this ongoing global need to build, maintain, and expand core industrial infrastructure.
And connecting that back, for you listening, understanding the trajectory of a market like this, even if it seems niche, it gives you a really valuable lens. It helps you see where actual physical, industrial, and economic development is happening on the ground. It's not always the flashy tech sectors grabbing headlines.
It's these foundational bits.
Exactly. These components enable so much else. It's a look at the industrial backbone. And seeing it strengthen consistently as well, it's informative.
It really is. Which brings us to a final thought for you to ponder.
Okay.
We've seen this sustained, robust growth forecast for tube expanders, a fundamental industrial tool. So the question is, what are the likely ripple effects? What might this steady expansion in a foundational market mean for adjacent industries, for the complexity of global supply chains, for resource demand? We've seen the numbers. But what does this quiet, consistent growth in the world's industrial nuts and bolts truly signify for the economy the next decade?
That's a great question to leave people with, thinking about those wider implications.
Today on The Deep Dive, we're pulling back the curtain on one of those hidden gears you know?
Yeah.
The kind that really drives massive global industries. It's often a component you've maybe never even heard of, but it's, well, absolutely fundamental to how our modern world actually operates.
Exactly. We're talking about the global tube expander market.
Right.
And it might sound niche, but this isn't just some small segment. It's a really vital underpinning for critical sectors. Think power generation, huge process industry.
HVAC systems too, right?
Absolutely. HVAC systems, keeping everything regulated, and also all that essential industrial maintenance work. It's everywhere.
And what's really striking, I found, is its trajectory. We looked at some cognitive market research data, and it shows this market is projected for, well, pretty significant growth right through 2033. It's expanding fast.
Yeah, that definitely signals its growing strategic importance.
So that growth isn't just happening randomly, is it?
Oh, definitely not accidental. It's
Yeah.
fundamentally driven by a mix of powerful factors. You've got the big push for industrial modernization.
I agree. The escalating global energy demand, which we see pretty much everywhere, and just this, pervasive growing need for precision engineering in almost every manufacturing and construction process.
So our mission for this deep dive, then, is to really unpack what's fueling this expansion.
Right.
The drivers, yeah. But also the challenges it faces there are always challenges.
Always.
And then maybe look at the exciting, sort of transformative trends that are shaping its future. Sound good?
Sounds great. Let's jump in.
Okay.
So when we look at these growth drivers, what becomes really clear is how connected they are to bigger global patterns, economic development, industrial shifts. These aren't isolated forces.
Right. So a primary driver you mentioned is the expansion in power generation and those big process industries. You see this global surge in energy demand, particularly in places like Asia Pacific, other developing economies. What does that huge hunger for energy actually mean for components like tube expanders?
Yep.
Well, it creates just an immense and frankly sustained need for the core industrial equipment. We're talking boilers, heat exchangers, pressure vessels.
The real workhorses.
Exactly. The absolute workhorses in thermal power plants, chemical refineries, petrochemical units, every single new plant or even a significant upgrade, it directly boosts the demand for really robust, really reliable tube expanders. They're essential for, ensuring the integrity and the long-term performance of these absolutely critical systems.
And it's not just about building new stuff, is it? There's also this massive wave of MRO activities, maintenance, repair, and overhaul.
Oh, absolutely huge.
Because so much of our global industrial infrastructure is, well, getting older. It needs constant upkeep.
Precisely. That aging infrastructure worldwide, it makes regular upkeep and refurbishment just essential, non-negotiable, really, to keep things running safely and efficiently.
Right.
And this reality, it prompts industries to constantly invest in efficient tube expanding tools, not just for their planned preventive maintenance schedules, but just as much for emergency servicing when, things unexpectedly break down. It's a vital ongoing demand that sometimes gets overlooked.
And this need for precision, for reliability, it's not just heavy industry, is it? You see a similar thing happening as, global urbanization fuels this massive expansion of HVAC and refrigeration systems.
Yes, exactly. As cities grow, especially in those emerging markets we talked about, more and more buildings, offices, homes, you name it, need climate control. And these systems, they rely heavily on really precise tube connections inside their condenser and evaporator coils. That's where tube expanders are absolutely central. They create those leak-free, high-performance seals that are just crucial for energy efficiency and, well, making the system last.
Okay, so you got market demand pulling it forward. But then there's the tools themselves. We've seen some pretty remarkable technological advancements in tube expansion tools lately.
Oh, definitely.
Things like digital torque control, automatic shutoff features, fancy electric drives.
Yeah, these innovations, they're genuinely revolutionizing safety and operational precision out in the field.
How so?
Well, they make the tools much more attractive to industrial users. These companies are always looking for ways to boost productivity, cut down on human error,
Right. Consistency.
achieve highly consistent results. Exactly. It's really about injecting intelligence into what was traditionally a very manual process, moving beyond just brute force to really precision-controlled expansion.
So, okay, lots of momentum, lots of growth drivers. It's easy to just focus on that. But, for every growing market, there are always speed bumps, headwinds.
Ways. Yep.
So let's pivot a bit. Let's explore some of the real challenges, the restraints that could potentially hold back this global tube expander market?
Yeah, good point. And one pretty significant hurdle is the increasing adoption of alternative joining techniques.
Okay, like what?
Well, we're seeing methods like orbital welding,
Hmm.
using an arc to fuse metals really precisely, or brazing, or even some quite advanced mechanical fittings becoming more common. And these tend to be favored in, say, high purity or really precision critical sectors.
And how do those alternatives actually affect the demand for traditional tube expansion?
Well, they often reduce the reliance on it, sometimes eliminate it entirely for certain jobs. If a project needs maybe an incredibly strong, perfectly sealed joint for a high pressure line or maybe a corrosive environment,
Right.
these alternatives might offer some distinct advantages. And that naturally chips away at the demand for expanders in those specific niches.
That distinction makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, another challenge. This has got to be a big one. The initial investment. The cost.
Yeah.
You mentioned those digital automated systems earlier. They sound amazing, but I bet they don't come cheap.
They certainly don't. High-end expanders, especially the ones with all the digital controls or full automation, they represent a pretty substantial upfront capital cost.
Right.
And that cost, it can be a real barrier. It might deter smaller companies, maybe workshops, from upgrading their gear, even if the long-term benefits like efficiency gains are really compelling.
And even if you can afford the best tools, you still need the people who know how to use them, right?
Right?
Is there a shortage of skilled technicians, people who can operate this increasingly sophisticated equipment properly?
It's a very real concern for the industry, yes. Getting optimal tube expansion, it really demands expert hands. It requires specialized training to make sure the job's done right without, damaging the tube itself. And in some markets where perhaps the vocational training infrastructure isn't as strong, this lack of skilled people directly limits how widely these advanced tools get adopted and used effectively. It's not just about buying the tool.
But it's about using it right.
Exactly. It's about being able to use it properly and safely.
Which brings us neatly to maybe the most critical point, safety and quality concerns. If someone doesn't use these tools correctly, I imagine the consequences could be pretty severe.
That's absolutely right. Incorrect expansion techniques, they can lead to immediate system failures, leaks, or even cause long-term structural stress in the material.
Which means costly downtime or worse.
Or safety hazards, potentially very serious ones. And this inherent risk, it pushes industries, especially in really sensitive areas like nuclear power or aerospace, to either demand tools with extra safety features like dual lock systems that give more assurance,
Okay.
or in some cases, they might just decide to go with those alternative joining methods we talked about earlier just to mitigate that risk altogether.
It's fascinating, though, how those challenges often seem to spur innovation and response.
Often the case.
So, despite those hurdles, the market is clearly evolving. Let's shift focus, again, maybe end on a more forward-looking note. What are the exciting emerging trends shaping this market's future?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the most compelling trends, I think, is the clear shift towards intelligent and digital tube expansion systems.
Back to the smart tools.
Back to the smart tools. We're seeing them equipped with sophisticated torque sensors, integrated data logging capabilities.
But they record what they did.
Exactly. And programmable shut-off features. So they're not just tools anymore, they're becoming smart instruments providing verifiable data.
That must be huge for certain industries.
Oh, enormous. These features make expanders not just smarter and more precise, but also inherently safer. And they're highly suitable, really ideal for those high regulation sectors we mentioned, aerospace, nuclear energy, where precision and complete verifiable data trails are just paramount. Compliance, safety, it's all tied together. It really changes the tool's value proposition.
Okay, interesting. Another development you hear about is the increasing role of third-party maintenance service providers. It seems like more industrial plants are contracting out this kind of work.
Yeah, that's a significant operational shift for many facilities. And these service contracts, they create a very specific kind of demand. They need reliable, definitely portable, and really durable expansion tools.
Because they're moving around all the time.
Exactly. These service providers need to operate efficiently across lots of different client sites, often in quite challenging environments. So this trend, it's actively carving out a new important niche in the market, one focused on mobility and sheer ruggedness.
And that leads perfectly into tool customization, doesn't it? Manufacturers aren't just churning out one-size-fits-all tools anymore.
Not at all, no. We're seeing a really strong trend where manufacturers are developing highly modular, really application-specific expanders.
No tailoring them.
Precisely. Engineering solutions to adapt to unique industrial demands. Maybe it involves working with extremely tough materials, like the titanium tubes you find in desalination plants.
Right.
Or maybe it requires ultra-precise control for those really delicate, soft copper coils in advanced air conditioning systems. That flexibility, that customization, it's becoming a key way for manufacturers to stand out.
And finally, we can't forget emerging markets. They keep coming up as these real growth accelerators. You mentioned India, Indonesia, Brazil.
Yeah, their rapid, ongoing infrastructure expansion, power plants, refineries, buildings, it's directly fueling just a massive demand for thermal systems.
Both new installs and upkeep.
Both. Not just for the original installations and all the new projects, but also for the extensive aftermarket maintenance needed for all the existing ones. This sustained development in these key regions, it provides a really significant continuous boost for the whole global tube expander industry. It helps ensure that forward momentum.
Well, that brings us, I think, towards the end of our deep dive into this surprisingly dynamic global tube expander market.
It is dynamic, isn't it?
It really is. We've journeyed through those powerful drivers pushing it forward, the critical challenges it needs to navigate, and some really exciting transformative trends that are reshaping its future.
And I think for everyone involved, industrial players, the tool makers themselves, the MRO specialists, this evolving market, it really presents a kind of dual landscape.
Oh,
Well, it offers both significant challenges that definitely demand careful navigation, strategic thinking, but also at the same time, incredible opportunities for innovation and growth.
it's quite remarkable, isn't it, when you stop and think about how these seemingly small, highly specialized components like a tube expander are absolutely foundational. They're critical to the vast, incredibly complex industrial infrastructure that, well, powers and builds our entire modern world.
It's
It
true.
really makes you consider, what other unsung heroes, what other hidden gears are out there quietly making everything else possible. Something to think about.